Hello everybody and welcome back to Typical City. The Lucas Paqueta deal is off. That is according to the reports coming out of Sky, coming out of TalkSport, and coming from the journalist Alan Nixon, who's got a reasonably decent track record of calling things. Confidential issues is the statement that I'm confused by. Confidential issues. What on earth could that mean? Confidential issues. I think the real discussion here is the price. I imagine it's the price and the fact that Lucas Paqueta has a buyout clause, a release clause that can only be activated in the summer, which is a reported £85 million fee. So therefore City are going to have to meet that now or go above it, which is why I suggested that I think this deal needs to be capped at about 90 million. But it sounds like City aren't willing to go there. It sounds like City are most likely stopping at around the 80 million. Apparently a verbal deal was offered. A verbal bid of 70 million, which sounds way off the mark in terms of West Ham's valuation, in terms of City's valuation. I think that makes sense, starting there to set the ball rolling and set out their precedent for how far they're willing to take this deal, because if you're starting at 70, the likeliness of getting to 90 is pretty slim. In terms of negotiations, I can't see City going 20 million above their starting fee because it's just being bent over a barrel at that point, especially if you start at 70. I think that needs to be factored in. £85 million next summer. Even then, I think activating that release clause, I think that's too pricey. I do want Paqueta, don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of Paqueta, and out of all the players that we've been linked with, Paqueta would be my go-to. I think he's got versatility. I think we've seen him in Brazil covering across the midfield. The fact that I was under the understanding that McTominay was supposed to be linked with West Ham. That deal sounds like not likely to be happening, with Kudus coming in instead. So they've got Kudus and Paqueta playing at West Ham potentially next season, which is great news for West Ham because that really solidifies their midfield and makes them a pretty strong outfit in the middle of the park. But and you add Alvarez to that, Edson Alvarez to that, and they're not bad. You know, they've done all right considering they've lost Declan Rice. But this is a bit of a blow to City, to be honest, because I think this is Pep's number one target, City's number one target. I think they were probably going to go for him before the Kevin De Bruyne injury. I don't think this is a knee-jerk reaction. I think City had plans to go for someone creative in the middle of the park prior to Kevin De Bruyne's injury. Now you factor in Kevin De Bruyne's injury and the necessity from a media perspective, from the outside looking in perspective, and the image that City are trying to maintain of not overspending on certain players. We might have an excuse ready to go to 85 million or 90 million because apparently it's 90% off. This is numerous reports, mixed reports. Both seem to be saying either 90% off or it's off. So, you know, it's a slim chance by the sounds of it. It sounds like it's collapsing, which is a big, big blow. A real shame to City, considering Kevin De Bruyne is injured, which is that itself is devastating. But the fact that we're now struggling to find a replacement, or it wasn't even a replacement, an addition to the squad, has now become even more needed, and it's a more of a demanding situation from City's point of view. And maybe West Ham know that, and maybe they're sticking their feet in the ground. But that might be the excuse City need to go in harder, go in higher with a bid that might be more appealing, and maybe that's that 10% we're talking about. The fact that City would go to 85, 90 million, but starting at 70, I think that's the 10%. You know, the likeliness of City doing that is slim. But that then moves on the conversation to who else? Who else could City possibly target, with Jeremy Doku already lined up? And that sounds a much more likely prospect, but he isn't going to fit the bill for filling Kevin De Bruyne's role. He's a winger, you know, an out-and-out wide player, very much on the right side of the pitch, which sounds like Riyad Mahrez's replacement. I'm excited about Jeremy Doku, so there's a bit of good news. Let's hope that deal goes through, because this transfer window can suddenly go tits up all of a sudden again if we only get Gvardiol and Kovacic. You add Paqueta and Doku to Kovacic and who else was the other one? Gvardiol. You add that to those players and it starts to look pretty good again. But all of a sudden, Doku falls through and Paqueta falls through, and it's like, oh no. So we've got to get that Doku deal done. Get that deal done and get a feel-good factor around the place again. On to potential replacements, or alternatives rather, instead of Paqueta. Now, in terms of Paqueta's actual stats, I think I go all the way back to Leon days, where he got, over the course of 2 seasons, he got 78 appearances, 5,822 minutes, 21 goals and 14 assists. That's 35 goal contributions, which is the stats that really got me excited. Alongside just watching him, sitting down and watching him play. I think most City fans tuned into that West Ham versus Bournemouth game, where I think he was showcased a little bit of what he's about. He's a player that I'd be gutted that we don't sign, in truth. And then you go to last season's stats. 43 appearances, 3,126 minutes, 5 goals and 7 assists. And I do think, I've had West Ham fans come at me already about my statement about being kept on a leash. I maintain, I stick by what I said. I think he's kept on a leash at West Ham. I don't think you're going to get the best out of Paqueta playing the way they play. I think he's, when you say box to box, he's very much more at the defensive box than the attacking box because of the way West Ham play. And he's a far more of a flair, flamboyant and creative player. That's why those numbers aren't as high as you'd expect them to be. I can almost guarantee you'd be getting close to double figures in both goals and assists had he donned this Manchester City shirt, last season or even next season. But the likeliness of that happening is pretty slim. You move then on to Dani Olmo, which is probably coinciding with the rumours, Dani Olmo rumours, and then this follows the Paqueta deal off. The Dani Olmo deal starts to make sense, but it's not as simple as, right, well, let's just go and get Dani Olmo, because Dani Olmo signed a contract in June 2023. Just 2 months ago, he signed a new contract. So how much have we got to spend for him? Because he's got a release clause that doesn't come into play until 2024, the same as Paqueta. Not the same price, though. It's £55 million release clause, which is much more appealing, which gives City probably a better platform to start the bidding off at around 50 to 55 million now. If we want this Dani Olmo, he's not compared to Paqueta's 85 million buyout clause, which comes in 2024. 55 million in 2024 is a little bit more on the financially viable side of things. But they've just signed a new contract, so you've got to question the player himself. Where's his head at? He has just mentally agreed to being an RB Leipzig player for the foreseeable future. Obviously, football changes in an instant. You wake up one morning, you're an RB Leipzig player. The next morning, you could end up playing for whoever. That's how quick the game moves. I'm sure he's aware of that, but it's a disrupting situation now to City and their plans, to Dani Olmo himself. If this is the potential alternative for Paqueta, it seems a bit quick now. It's not like City to get as rash and as they've not been as assertive with these two particular deals. The way they handled Gvardiol was bloody brilliant. I thought that was fantastic. It took longer than expected, but we got the deal done and for the price that we wanted. That's all that matters at the end of the day, and I think that's the most important thing. Yes, you want to get those extra couple of weeks in pre-season. Of course, that would be better, but to get the price Gvardiol for 77 million is brilliant. What can we do now as a potential alternative? Could there be another player lined up instead of Dani Olmo? 31 appearances for Dani Olmo last season, 1,638 minutes, which is really, really low, and to still get 11 assists and 5 goals, pretty good going. You go and watch the performance against Bayern Munich in the German Super Cup before the Bundesliga season got underway, scoring a hat-trick in that game. Pretty formidable performance and a real statement made for his intentions for the upcoming season, but he looked incredibly happy. But how far have City got to go, considering all the stipulations of his particular contract situation? He's contracted until 2027, no buyout clause of 55 million in 2024. What have we got to pay now? So if you start in they're going to want a minimum of 55 million, really, aren't they? They're going to want a minimum of that. The buyout clause is probably not going to be enough now, because why would they sign a new contract? We're leaving them in the lurch. They're going to suddenly have to break the bank themselves, and we're leaving them with very little time to replace Dani Olmo. So they're going to want upwards of 60 to 70 million, and all of a sudden we're paying what we were about to pay for Paqueta, So it gets a bit messy. It's getting a bit muddy, this situation, a bit frustrating as well. And you add De Bruyne's injury, and it's a killer. It's a killer blow. But Blues, give us your alternatives. If it's not Dani Olmo and it's not Paqueta, who could it be? I do think Dani Olmo is going to shot up in the priority list, considering this news of the Paqueta deal being off. If it's not Dani Olmo, I've heard Wirtz, numerous other players have been linked with City with very little credibility to the sources, but Who are your particular favourites? I know Wirtz is probably going to be most people's go-to. It's frustrating. De Bruyne's injury has been huge to this club right now. It's a huge, huge blow. Newcastle at the weekend. I've got my preview coming out later, so keep an eye out for that one. I will be doing a watch-along on that, 8 o'clock. Joke of a kickoff time, considering we played at Wednesday in bloody Greece. You know, thanks Premier League. Cheers for that. Yeah, nice one. 8 o'clock kickoff. That makes all the difference. Yeah. But anyway, join me for the watch along. It's going to be a massive game. I'm doing my preview later, so come and join me for that one as well. That'll be good. But yeah, get your predictions in for the Newcastle game. Get your predictions in for who are City going to go for as an alternative to Paqueta. I'd like to hear them. Get in the comments, like and subscribe. Typical City is the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now, holding up Silverwood.